The kingdom of Betrayal was a land of shadow and stone. Its mountains rose like black spears into the sky, and its rivers flowed silver under the moon. To its people, Betrayal was unshakable, eternal, a kingdom that had survived 100 wars and a dozen kings. But within its obsidian palace, where the torches never seemed bright enough to chase away the gloom, there lived a queen whose heart beat not for her crown, but for freedom. Her name was Selene. Selene was young, her beauty often compared to the pale moon she was named for. Her hair spilled like ink down her back, and her eyes carried the sadness of someone who had learned too soon that love and power rarely walked hand in hand. She had been wed to King Edric, a man of iron will and colder heart. Edric was a ruler admired by his court and feared by his enemies. He was not cruel without reason, but he loved his crown more than he ever loved his queen. For Selene, her life was not a marriage but a cage. She played her role with grace, walking beside Edric in public, sitting at his feasts, wearing jewels that weighed heavier than her crown. But in the solitude of her chambers, she wept in silence, clutching the memories of a youth stolen by duty. It was on a night of pale moonlight that her fate shifted. Selene often walked the gardens when sleep refused her, slipping past her ladies-in-waiting to breathe the cold night air. The gardens of Betrayal were said to be cursed, roses grew black at the edges, and statues of kings long dead loomed over the paths. Few dared to wander there after dark. But Selene was not afraid of curses. She was afraid only of a life unlived. That night, among the withered roses, she found herself watched. A figure stood in the shadows, armored and silent, yet not threatening. When the torchlight caught his face, she recognized him immediately. Sir Alaric. He was one of the king's most trusted knights, a man known for his unyielding loyalty, his swordsmanship, and the strange sadness in his gaze. His presence was not unusual. Knights often patrolled the gardens. What was unusual was the way his eyes lingered on hers, not with the reverence of a soldier to a queen, but with something unspoken. "My queen," he said, bowing low. "You startled me," Selene replied softly, though in truth, her heart had leapt not with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Their conversation was brief, formal. Yet when Selene returned to her chambers that night, she could not sleep. She remembered the way his voice had carried warmth that her husband's never had, the way his eyes had softened for a heartbeat when they met hers. The days passed, and the queen found herself seeking excuses to walk the gardens again. And there, more often than chance would allow, was Sir Alaric. Sometimes he offered words of comfort, sometimes only silence. But always, he was there. One evening, as frost glazed the roses, Selene spoke without thought. "Do you believe in curses, Sir Alaric?" He studied her for a long moment. "I believe in choices, my queen. Curses are nothing but the weight of choices made long ago." She smiled faintly, though her heart raced. "And what of choices made in the present?" His silence was answer enough. But the court was never blind for long. Whispers slithered through the palace halls, that the queen lingered too often in the gardens, that Sir Alaric's watch was too constant. Selene heard the rumors, and though they frightened her, they also thrilled her. For the first time in her life, her heart beat for something more than duty. Yet shadows seemed to follow her more closely each night. Her dreams grew strange. She saw herself walking through the gardens, roses blooming red as blood beneath her feet. A figure cloaked in shadow stood among them, whispering in a voice like cracked stone. The queen who betrays the throne with love will bring ruin upon the kingdom. Her kiss will be the death of all she holds dear. Selene would wake, trembling, but she told no one. Not even Alaric. One night, as the moon hung low and heavy, Selene found him again among the roses. The air was sharp with cold, but when he looked at her, warmth spread through her veins. They stood in silence, the weight of unspoken words pressing between them. Finally, Alaric broke it. If the king knew how often you wandered here, he would not forgive me. Selene's voice was barely a whisper. And yet you still come. For a moment, the knight's mask slipped. His jaw tightened, his eyes burned with something raw. Because I cannot stay away. Selene's breath caught. For all her life, she had been a queen, a symbol, a prize, but in his gaze, she was simply a woman. She reached for his hand. Just a touch. But in that single touch, something dangerous was born. Neither of them spoke again. The silence said enough. That night, Selene returned to her chambers, her lips still tingling from the ghost of a kiss never given. But in her dreams, the shadowed figure returned, its voice colder than before. The first kiss will awaken the curse. The last will destroy the kingdom. Selene woke with tears on her cheeks. And yet, as dawn painted the sky, her heart whispered the truth she already knew. She would seek Alaric again. The weeks that followed were a blur of longing. By day, Queen Selene wore her crown, sitting at her husband's side during councils and feasts. She smiled when nobles praised the king, bowed when foreign lords offered tribute, and raised her jeweled cup at the endless toasts. But behind the mask of a perfect queen, her heart throbbed like a bird trapped in a cage. At night, she lived another life. Sir Alaric was always near, always silent, always watchful. Sometimes she found him in the gardens, sometimes in the shadowed halls. At first, their meetings were nothing but lingering glances, words half-spoken, hands brushing as if by accident. But each touch left her shaking, hungry for more. The curse whispered at the edges of her mind, but Selene was too starved for affection to heed it. One night, the court feasted long into the dark. Minstrels sang, goblets overflowed, and King Edric boasted of his latest conquest, another border won through war. Selene sat beside him, her smile brittle as glass, until her head ached with the weight of the crown. When the king grew drunk with pride, she slipped quietly away. The moon was a silver coin in the sky when she entered the gardens. Alaric stood waiting, as though he had known she would come. His armor gleamed faintly in the torchlight, his face grave, yet his eyes betrayed the fire he carried within. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured. "And yet you are," she replied. They walked among the roses in silence. Selene felt the cold bite of winter on her skin, but Alaric's presence was a warmth she could not deny. Her hand brushed his once, twice, until at last he caught it and held it tightly. "Selene," he whispered her name, not her title. "If anyone saw us." "I no longer care," she interrupted. Her voice shook, but not from fear. "I have lived too long as a queen, and not long enough as a woman." Alaric's breath shuddered. His self-control, forged through years of loyalty and honor, cracked. He pulled her closer, the scent of steel and earth clinging to him. For a heartbeat, they stood on the edge of ruin. Then he kissed her. It was a kiss that burned through every layer of silence they had carried. Her lips trembled against his, and his hands held her as though he feared she might vanish. It was not the gentle kiss of a courtly knight, it was desperate, hungry, forbidden. The world itself seemed to shudder. The torches flickered wildly, and the roses around them blackened at the edges, petals curling into ash. A wind rose from nowhere, carrying with it the faint cry of something ancient and vengeful. Selene tore her lips from his, gasping. "The curse," she whispered. Alaric's brow furrowed. "What curse?" She hesitated. How could she tell him of the shadowed figure in her dreams, the prophecy that her kiss would destroy the kingdom? To speak it aloud would make it real. Instead, she shook her head. "Nothing. Only my fear." Alaric cupped her face in his hands. "Then let me take your fear. I will bear it for you, as I would bear any sword." Her heart broke and healed all at once in that moment. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her above the crown, above the kingdom. And so, though terror gnawed at her, she kissed him again. Dash. The following days were filled with stolen moments. They met in hidden chambers deep within the castle, where tapestries muffled their whispers. They embraced in shadowed corridors, in the crypts where no one dared go, in the stables where the horses stirred restlessly as if sensing the weight of sin. Every kiss deepened their bond, and with it, the curse. The omens grew darker. Roses in the gardens blackened completely, their thorns dripping with crimson sap. The palace dogs howled at nothing. The rivers that once shone silver turned grey with ash. Servants whispered that shadows clung to the walls longer than the torches allowed. And at night, Selene's dreams grew unbearable. The cloaked figure returned, its voice like knives. "You have awakened the curse. Each kiss you give will poison the land. Your last kiss will end it all." She would wake trembling in Alaric's arms, the echo of the prophecy heavy in her chest. But when he kissed her again, all her fear dissolved into fire. Yet shadows were not the only danger. King Edric had begun to notice. At feasts, he caught the way Selene's eyes strayed too long toward the knight who stood by the doors. He noticed the way Alaric's hand lingered on his sword when others looked too closely at the queen. Edric's suspicion was a storm building behind his cold gaze, and though he said nothing, Selene felt the weight of his silence. Her secret love had become a fire too bright to hide. And the curse, hungry and patient, waited for its final spark. The kingdom of Betrayal began to rot from the inside. What started with blackened roses soon spread to the land itself. Crops withered before harvest, their stalks brittle as bone. Sheep birthed lambs that did not cry. Fishermen dragged nets from the river only to find dead eels tangled in the mesh, their eyes clouded white. The people muttered of bad omens. Some whispered of sorcery. Others claimed the gods had turned their faces away. Selene knew the truth, though she dared not speak it. Every time Alaric's lips touched hers, she felt the kingdom die a little more. One evening, as thunder rolled over the mountains, Selene wandered the palace halls alone. Her husband, King Edric, was in council, billowing over strategies of war. Alaric was at his post near the gates, though she had begged him to meet her later. She could not keep away, no matter the cost. Her feet carried her to the old wing of the castle, where cobwebs hung thick and dust dulled the stones. There, beyond a door of ironwood, lay the abandoned chapel of the moon goddess, a place no one visited anymore, for the goddess had long been forgotten in Draveler. Yet tonight, a candle burned within. Selene pushed open the door, and her breath caught. An old woman knelt before the cracked altar, her hair white as snow, her skin creased with centuries of age. Her eyes, however, gleamed like molten gold. She turned, and her voice echoed as though many spoke at once. "You carry the curse." Selene's knees weakened. "Who are you?" "A priestess," the woman said simply. "One of the last who remembers the old ways. I have watched queens come and go, each bound by the same chains. But you, Selene of Draveler, you have kissed where you should not, and the land bleeds for it." Selene shook her head, trembling. "I did not choose this life. I was given to a king who does not love me. Am I to be punished for craving what was denied?" The priestess's gaze softened, but her words remained sharp. "You are not punished for love, child. You are punished for betrayal. The curse is older than you, older than this kingdom. It was born when the first queen betrayed her king. Her kiss poisoned the throne, and since then, every queen carries the same doom if she strays." Tears burned Selene's eyes. "Tell me how to stop it." "There is only one way." The priestess leaned close, her breath smelling of ash and incense. "You must choose. Your heart or your crown. If you keep kissing the night, the kingdom will die. If you deny him, your heart will wither, but the land will live." The words struck like a blade. Selene stumbled from the chapel, her chest aching. The storm outside had broken, rain lashed against the stone, and thunder cracked like the voice of a god. She pressed her palms to her eyes, as though she could shut out the truth. But when she found Alaric waiting in the shadows, drenched and desperate for her, her choice became impossible. That night, she tried to resist him. "Alaric," she whispered, her hands trembling against his chest, "we cannot continue. The land sickens with every kiss. The people suffer because of us." He caught her face in his hands. His touch was rough from battle, yet tender as a prayer. "Then let them blame me. Let them curse me, exile me, slay me if they must. But do not ask me to stop loving you." Her resolve shattered. She kissed him, rain mixing with tears on their lips. And once more, the kingdom groaned beneath the weight of the curse. Meanwhile, King Edric's suspicions sharpened into certainty. He saw the way Selene's cheeks flushed when Alaric entered the hall. He noticed how the knight's hand tightened on his sword when courtiers drew too near to her. He marked how she slipped away during feasts, and how Alaric was never far behind. Edric was no fool. And though he was not a man of passion, betrayal was a poison he could not forgive. "Let them think me blind," he muttered to his advisers. "A serpent strikes truest when its prey grows careless." His wrath was silent, but it was coming. Selene's dreams worsened. The shadowed figure stood closer now, its cloak of darkness trailing like smoke. Its voice cut through her. "You have been warned, yet you persist. Each kiss drives the knife deeper into your kingdom's heart. The last kiss will end not only your land, but your life as well." Selene woke screaming, her body slick with sweat. Alaric held her, whispering soothing words, but even his embrace could not still her terror. Still, she could not give him up. She chose love again. And again. And again. Until the curse coiled around the kingdom so tightly that Draveler itself began to choke. The storm over Draveler did not pass. Days stretched into weeks of unending gloom. The skies remained grey, the sun a faint and feeble glow that offered no warmth. The fields lay barren, and whispers of famine spread like wildfire among the people. King Edric, once praised as the iron pillar of the realm, now found his throne questioned. Priests muttered of divine anger. Farmers spat curses into the dirt. Rebellion brewed at the edges of the kingdom. And still, Selene's heart betrayed her. Every night she found Alaric, and every night the curse grew stronger. She told herself she could stop, that she would stop, but when his arms wrapped around her, when his lips met hers, all resolve turned to ash. It was inevitable that Edric would uncover the truth. One evening, he summoned Selene to his private chamber. His tone was calm, his face unreadable, but his eyes burned like ice. "You walk often at night, my queen," he said, pouring himself wine. "You wander the gardens, the halls, even the stables. Do you find my palace so dull?" Selene's heart raced, but she kept her face still. "I seek only the peace the day denies me." Edric studied her, sipping his wine. Then he set the goblet down with deliberate care. "And do you seek that peace in the arms of my knight?" The words struck like a blade. Selene froze. The king's lips curled into something between a sneer and a smile. "Do not deny it. I have eyes everywhere. You thought your whispers, your touches, your stolen hours were hidden? A queen is never hidden. She is always watched." Selene's voice faltered. "Edric." Silence. The word cracked like a whip. He rose, towering above her, his face carved in fury. "You have betrayed not only me, but the crown, the kingdom, the gods themselves. Do you know what your treachery has cost us? The land rots. The people starve. War rises on our borders. And all the while, you cling to a knight like some tavern maid." Tears blurred Selene's vision. "I never chose this crown. I never chose you." For the first time, anger twisted Edric's control into raw violence. He struck the table, shattering the goblet into shards. Wine spilled like blood across the stone. "You will speak those words again," he growled, "when your lover's head lies at your feet." That night, guards seized Alaric. He did not fight them, though he could have slain half before they bound him. He allowed the chains, his gaze fixed on Selene as they dragged him past. No words were needed. She saw in his eyes the same fire that had burned from the first night in the garden. Edric ordered him to the dungeons, to await execution at dawn. As for Selene, the king locked her in the highest tower, her crown stripped from her head, her gowns torn from her body. She was left in a simple shift, her bare feet cold against the stone. The queen was a prisoner now, but the curse had grown too strong to be caged. That very night, shadows moved like living things across the palace walls. Flames sputtered and died without reason. The air itself seemed heavy, pressing down on every soul within Betrayal. Soldiers reported nightmares so vivid they woke screaming, their minds fractured. And outside the walls, the land split. Great cracks tore through the earth, swallowing barns, cottages, and fields. From the chasms rose smoke and fire, as though the underworld itself clawed toward the surface. The people wailed that the end of days had come. In her tower, Selene prayed not to the gods who had abandoned her, but to the man she loved. When midnight struck, the sound of steel against stone woke her. She rushed to the window, heart leaping, and there he was, Alaric, bloodied but unbroken, climbing the outer wall with a dagger clenched in his teeth. He had escaped his chains. Moments later, he burst into her chamber, chest heaving, eyes blazing. Selene, he gasped, pulling her into his arms. She clung to him, trembling. You'll be killed. Not tonight, he growled. Tonight, we run. But running was no longer simple. Edric had rallied his men, his wrath driving him to madness. By torchlight, he called his banners and declared Alaric a traitor and rebel. The knights' brothers in arms, torn between loyalty to king and comrade, splintered. Some followed Edric. Others slipped away to join Alaric's cause. The kingdom fractured overnight. Civil war was at its doorstep. And at the heart of it all stood Selene, torn between crown and love, as the curse whispered in her dreams. The last kiss will end the kingdom. The kingdom of Graveler awoke to the sound of war. Trumpets blared from the castle walls, their notes ragged with panic. Fires burned in the villages below as rebels clashed with the king's soldiers. Lightning split the sky though no storm lingered, and the earth shook with each clash of steel. The curse had consumed the land, and now it demanded blood. Selene rode at Alaric's side, her hair streaming behind her like a dark banner. He had torn her from her prison and given her a blade, though she had never been taught to wield one. She carried it anyway, more symbol than weapon. Her weapon was her heart, and it was both her strength and her doom. Alaric's men were few compared to Edric's army, but they fought with the desperation of those who believed in love, not power. Each swing of Alaric's sword carved a path through the chaos, his defiance a beacon in the darkness. The queen should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive for the first time. At the castle gates, Edric stood in his black armor, his crown gleaming beneath the ashen sky. His eyes locked on Selene, and fury like a storm churned within them. Wife, he spat the word like venom, you would betray your king, your throne, your gods, for a knight who will bleed out before your eyes? Selene's voice rang clear, unshaken, I never betrayed my kingdom. It was you who betrayed me when you gave me a crown without love. I would rather die for a kiss than live for your crown. Edric's face twisted, but his reply was swallowed by the clash of steel as Alaric charged him. The two men collided with the fury of beasts. Edric's strength was born of rage and pride, Alaric's of love and desperation. Their swords sparked, their shields shattered. Every strike echoed like thunder. Selene watched, helpless, torn between horror and awe. The battle raged around her. Soldiers screamed, fire consumed the stables, and the cursed earth split wider, swallowing men and horses alike. The kingdom itself seemed to bleed. Then she saw it. Alaric faltered. Edric's blade pierced his side, and blood blossomed scarlet across his armor. Alaric fell to one knee, his breath ragged. No! Selene screamed, rushing to him, heedless of the blades clashing around her. She fell to her knees, cradling his face in her hands. His lips were pale, his strength fading. Yet his eyes still burned with the same fire that had first caught her in the garden. Selene, he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Don't weep. We have lived more in stolen moments than most do in a lifetime. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I cannot lose you. Not now. Not ever. You were never mine to keep, he murmured, blood bubbling at his lips. But if the curse demands an ending, let it be ours, together. The shadowed figure from Selene's dreams rose before her eyes, though no one else seemed to see it. Cloaked in darkness, it whispered. The last kiss will end the kingdom. Choose now. Her hands trembled. She could turn away. She could let him die without sealing their fate. Perhaps the kingdom would survive. Perhaps the curse would sleep again. But to deny him, to deny herself, was a death far crueler. Selene bent her head and pressed her lips to his. It was soft, broken, desperate. The kiss of a woman choosing love over duty, heart over crown, soul over kingdom. The world shattered. The ground split with a roar. The obsidian castle cracked from tower to foundation, collapsing in on itself. Flames shot into the sky, devouring banners and battlements. The river boiled, black smoke rising from its surface. The sky itself bled crimson as lightning struck without pause. Soldiers dropped their weapons, screaming, as the earth swallowed them whole. Nobles fled, their silks burning as ash rained down. The people wailed, and Raveler, the eternal kingdom, died in a single breath. At the center of it all, Selene held Alaric. As the curse consumed them, she felt no fear, only peace. For the first time, she had lived as more than a queen. She had lived as herself. Their lips parted only when the fire claimed them both. When the smoke cleared, nothing remained of Graveler but ruins and ash. The people who survived spoke of the curse, of the queen who chose love over crown. Some called her a traitor. Others, a martyr. Legends grew of Selene and Alaric, whose forbidden kiss brought down a kingdom but gave birth to a story that would never die. And in the ruins, among the blackened roses, a single flower bloomed red as blood.